Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the second portion of tonight's meeting, Public Works, Recreation, and Arena Committee meeting. I am your chair, Councillor Trombetta. Any change in orders on the items on the agenda? Seeing none. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? I don't see any as well. Anybody here want to request any items on the agenda? Here's your opportunity to talk about anything. Seeing none. Consent agenda items we'll head down to. Recommendation that Public Works, Recreation, and Arena Committee hereby approves the following consent agenda items. Item number 1B and hereby receive for information, and number 2B and hereby receive and recommendations contained there and adopted with the exemptions of number 1 is West Lincoln Public Library Board minutes of September 13th, 2019. And recommendation report, RFD PW 2019 to 2022 fuel production tender authorization. I need a mover. Councillor Riley. Anybody else want to put there? Councillor Yonker. All those in favor? And that's carried. There's no communications. I'll head down to staff reports. Drainage Superintendent Mark Jemison and Director of Public Works, Recreation, Mr. Director Mike DePaula. Recommendation report, the RFD PW 2019, a petition for drainage works by owners, Mill Creek. The recommendation that report RFD PW 20-2019 dated October 21st, 2019 regarding petition for drainage works by owners, Mill Creek, and be received. And that council proceeds with the petition under section 5.1 of the Drainage Act and send notices to each petitioner, the clerk of each local municipality that may be affected, and the Conservation Authority. I need a mover. Anybody? Councillor Rayner, and anybody on this side? Anybody? Councillor Ganan. Comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Sure, that'd be nice. I didn't even, that'd be nice. Mr. Director, can you introduce him and then he can talk a little bit about himself? Because
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Chair. This is Mark Jameson, our Drainage Superintendent. The Drainage Act is an old piece of legislation, and it's kind of tricky to implement that legislation in this day and age. So I thought that Mark would be the best person to answer any questions with this report. Would you like to say anything, Mark, what you do here?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm Mark Jemison, Drainage Superintendent. It's a shared position with the Township of Wainfleet. West Lincoln has 12 municipal drains, about 55 kilometers of total in length. We share those with a lot of the municipalities around us, so Pelham, Grimsby, Hamilton. This drain in question is kind of the southeast portion of the township. It's been farmed for a long time, and the landowner is seeking to make it a municipal drain. So you'll be hearing from me in 30 days.
So you're the shared guy who was previously, Jason Culp, was it? That was a previous position. Now he's just a shared service that we used to have. It's good to have you on board. Thanks for coming to see us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Moving on, item PW 39-19, Director of Public Works and Recreation, Mike DePaula, recommendation report, the RFD PW 21-2019, status update on the Regional Road 20 project. Public Works, Recreation, Arena Committee, October 20, I don't know what the heck's going on. Is that a mistype there? Sorry. Did I just jump it somehow? Yeah, I'll just skip that. Let me just start again, sorry. Status update on Regional Road 20. The report, the status update on Regional Road 20 project dated October 21st, 2019 be received, and that the funding to replace the existing water main within the limits of the intersection improvements of Regional Road 20, West Street, Griffin Street / Confusion Corners on the Regional Road 14, Station Street be included in the 2020 capital budget. I need a mover. Councillor Yonker, Councillor Ganan, comments or questions? I have a few. Let's get a little briefing on this. I guess this came up. I was talking to the CAO at our the strategic planning. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, strategic planning meeting. I guess there's an old AC water main that's going through there, and this was already forecasted in the budget, and now we're just this is getting added to to the project, you can go ahead, Mr. Director.
All right, through the chair, there is projects in the forecast to replace an old AC asbestos cement water main through the corridor of Highway 20, basically in and around the area of Confusion Corners heading easterly to Town Line Road. But the limits of where that AC water main is located, there's not a lot of information on it. It's kind of typical with old infrastructure through the downtown core. And when the region awarded the Regional 20 contract to the successful contractor, beginning of October there, the contractor called for locates, and there was a section of water main at Confusion Corner that they had trouble tracing, and that typically means that it's an old asbestos cement with no tracer wire on it. And some of the water main in that intersection is newer vintage PVC, but there's still a small section that is an old water main that they couldn't trace. And that water main is located within the construction limits of what the region's planning to do. So the water main is in the forecast. I think the previous staff didn't know exactly where it was or what the limits were. So it makes sense to at least replace that small section of water main within the construction limits. And that's what this report's all about. We just want to budget the funds to do that in our 2020 project, and the region talked to the contractor with this new information. The contractor originally wanted to start the intersection this year, but now this gives us time to figure out what we want to do with the water main. Like this is why we have to design it and get some approvals in place, and the region's contractor is willing to to delay the construction work of the intersection until the spring at no extra cost to the region or the township. So we just want to include the water main, the underground infrastructure as part of the limits of the construction. We hate to do the construction work and then a water main breaks on a new road, right? So that's the purpose of this report.
Okay, excellent. Any further comments or questions? No, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item PW 40-19, Director of Planning and Building, Brian Treble, Director of Public Works, Mr. DePaula, recommendation report PD 169-19, road allowance transfer to Mr. Dave Goldenberg between lots 17 and 18, concession 8, former township of South Grimsby, now in the township of West Lincoln, west of property owned by 517604 Ontario Inc. Alden Equipment. The recommendation, the planning staff report PD 169-19 regarding road allowance transfer to Mr. David Goldenberg between lots 17 and 18, concession 8, former township of South Grimsby, now in the township of West Lincoln, dated October 21st, 2019, be received, and that staff be authorized to obtain 3 quotes and commission the lowest cost surveyor to complete the legal survey for the closed road allowance to permit future conveyance from the Regional Road 20 to the Hydro Corridor, and that a bylaw be approved by the Township Council to close the entire road allowance from the Regional Road 20 to Yonge Street, but the conveyance of the remaining lands only occur upon expressions of the interest by the neighbors' property owners, and that an appraisal of lands not be required since research by staff has concluded that the current Regional Road 12 Grimsby Mountain Road was taken as a given road, and therefore this road should have been closed and conveyed at the time, and that staff be authorized to use the administration fees deposit as per the road closing and conveyance policy, and the total cost shall be divided appropriately among all the benefiting property owners, such that full reimbursement to the township of West Lincoln ultimately occurs for the land to be conveyed. I need a mover. Councillor Riley, Mr. Mayor, comments or questions? Just a lot of information there, seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Move on to item PW 41-19, Director of Planning, Building, Brian Treble, recommendation report. Another road allowance transfer, Caseville United Church, road allowance between lots 1, 2, 3, known as Church Street. Report PD 170-19 regarding road allowance transfer, Caseville United Church, road allowance between lots 1, 2, 3, and 7, known as Church Street, dated October 21st, 2019, be received, and that a portion of the road allowance separating Caseville United Church and its cemetery from the adjacent land Church Street between York and David Street be and hereby declared surplus to the needs of the Township of West Lincoln. the staff be authorized to approach the adjacent property owners about their interest in the street and determine the possible conveyance pattern, commission a surveyor in accordance with the purchasing requirements and report back with an update, and to seek authority to actually close the conveyance of the road, and that an appraisal is not required for this unopened road allowance, and that Mr. David Brenzel of the Casterville United Church be provided with a copy of the report PD 170, 2019. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Yonker, Councillor Cody. All those in favor? Oh, comments or questions? Sorry. All those in favor? And that's carried. Moving on to other business. This item was brought forward by Councillor Riley at PW 42-19, establishing the West Lincoln Community Center Advisory Committee. A recommendation that staff are hereby directed to establish an advisory committee for West Lincoln, the community center, and that the advisory committee be made up of volunteers throughout the community, and that at least one member of council be appointed to sit on this advisory committee, and that at least one staff member be appointed to sit on this advisory committee, and that the advisory committee meet once a month, and that the advisory committee elect a volunteer member to chair the advisory committee, and that the advisory committee elect a volunteer member to be the secretary of the advisory committee meetings, and that advisory committee provide council with the minutes from each WLCCAC meeting, and that the mission of the West Lincoln Community Center Advisory Committee be to promote and aid in attracting community events and or activities for all ages and groups within the community, and that the mission also include initiatives to help staff to seek opportunities in generating revenue that can be used towards operational costs of the WLCC, and that the advisory committee purpose is but not limited to help promote and facilitate special events and bring new ideas and suggestions from the public with assistance from staff to help generate revenue opportunities that can be used towards the operational costs of the WLCC, and help promote clubs of all natures, including sports, the arts, community fundraisers, and social educational activity gatherings within the facilities. I need a mover. Councillor Riley, Councillor Cody. I'll turn this to Councillor Riley since he brought it forward, and then maybe people will have some comments or questions afterwards. You have the floor, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess just to kind of start at the beginning, I think it kind of captures the essence of it and everything you just read there. And sorry for such a long recommendation, and I probably could have worded it a little bit smoother for you, so I do apologize there. For me, looking at what we're going to be able to do in the future with the West Lincoln Community Center and where it currently is I feel like this is a proactive approach to ensuring that the best interests of the facility, as well as the people it serves, as well as those who work within it, are being met. I guess another portion of it is being on the eve of what we're going to find out in terms of the amalgamation. To me, it was important to have this conversation before, or literally on, I guess, the election day. So I guess, I'm not too sure when the actual Ford announcement will be, what's happening in terms of the amalgamation. So to me, I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation, if we can kind of set a direction to do this, because I think there's a unique opportunity here, not just through, I guess, our staff to help achieve this, but also members of the public. And I imagine the individual who would be attracted to this are going to be people who are a part of associations within the community to begin with, who are going to be very interested in having a chance to sit down there and share their ideas and help be a driving force for it. I think we look at the burden that the West Lincoln Community Center has put on the community, as we've heard from councillors and residents around. So I think this is also a really good proactive measure in seeing that it can help itself drive forward, not just, I guess, even on a fiscal idea of it, but even on an involvement of the community and how we're able to make sure it's being utilized to its full potential. Even today, actually, or maybe it was last night, I responded back today, got an email about from an individual complaining, or more concerned about, I guess not so much complaining, more concerned about some of the rates of being able to use the gym or the skating rink. And so one of my hopes and maybe aspirations is that this committee would help in some way find local businesses or partnerships with other events, whether it's within town or more corporate-wise, that would be able to contribute to maybe sponsoring a weekly evening and or more, and that would also be a cost savings for those who are actually participating in it. And so, yeah, so just to kind of sum it up, I feel like we got to start somewhere, and I want to make sure that conversation happened now. And I hope that, it can be successful. And I'm very open to amendments to this by any means. I want to make sure this is as successful as it can be, as well as serves its purpose of taking care of the community. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Quite sure we'll have maybe some question and answers in a bit. Mr. Mayor, you got the floor.
Thank you. And, appreciate the direction and the foresight on this. I in no way want to detract from it. I think it would be very useful advisory committee, at least to even get kind of the ball rolling. I don't know if it's necessary. So I have little issues with details of this, so I'm not going to nitpick it, because I think in general I like the direction. So I would just suggest that we refer this either to two places, either refer this to staff or both. Refer it to staff to clean up, because there's terms of reference and things that need to be tweaked on this. There also, my understanding is, there's going to be some commitment of staff, which means that there's a financial implication. So that's where the staff needs to come in and tweak it. And this is common. This is not anybody who comes forward with a good idea and you've put a good structure together, but it usually gets referred to staff to clean up and to categorize the way that our bylaws and such work, and refer it to the strat plan process. I think that that's another great place, since we're developing our strategic plan for the remainder of the term, regardless of amalgamation, and you hit the nail on the head. That was part of the discussion, and we're all, I think, remember that one of the bullets that Aaron drove us and pulled out of us was kind of a social engagement and recognizing our community center as this new gem. How do we utilize it? So I would like to refer it either to the strat process and or to the staff. So I would make a motion that we receive this as a framework and refer to staff. And the strat plan process, I don't necessarily know how I would refer it to that process, but if I refer to staff and they kick it into the strat plan process, I think I would be satisfied with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you like to hold your motion and let other members of council to discuss? Have some
You know what?
comments?
I will,
I'll
but
come
that's
back
where
to
I'm
you.
going to go. Yeah.
Okay,
So at
if
the
that's okay
later
with
point,
you?
yeah.
Okay, because I have some people on this side who'd like to speak to it. Councillor Yonker?
Yeah, I guess basically what I was going to ask is first of all, is this something that a lot of the community centers do? Or is it something that we let staff work on? And I guess that's kind of where I'm looking at, is like this building is brand new. We definitely need to work on a lot of things. I know we're talking about the alcohol policy is one of them. So I don't know if this is something that we want to let go for a while to see how staff does things and to see what they put into place. And I think they are doing a good job of reaching out there and promoting the community, right? So to me, it's just, is this a little bit premature, and is it necessary, I guess is what I'm asking. And that's kind of hard to say when we don't really know how well the building is going to be utilized. And I guess that's where you want to say, okay, do we want something to promote it more, or is staff doing a good job of already promoting it? And I guess that's where I'm kind of wondering, right? There's that. So I guess the question is this something that staff would even be going, yeah, we need this?
Thank you, Councillor Yonker. Councillor Gannon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think actually we do need it, and I think now is the time to start thinking about this, and partly because I see it as a continuation of what we did when we looked at building the facility in the first place. As you chaired at the time, Councillor, it was a matter of bringing the public to meetings and saying, what would you like to see in this facility? And so as we built it and as we planned around it, a lot of different organizations and groups had some input into that. So now I think it's another good time to take a look at it from the other perspective. We don't have a huge number of staff members, and I think to put more and more on top of staff is not the right direction to go. I think we need to be working with staff and trying to say, what can we do? And so an example of that might be what the Age Friendly Group did. And so as the facility was being built, we knew there was nobody on our staff who had the time to do the research to look at what other municipalities are doing. So ongoing throughout that time, various members found out what was happening in all of the other 12 municipalities in our region, and we looked outside of the region also to neighboring communities, to Burlington, to Hamilton, to some of the smaller communities as well, to say, what are you doing for your seniors, and what are you doing for your kids, and what are you doing for, and what are the costs of all of those things, and put together some documentation that we then gave to our staff and our CAO in terms of a presentation, and just said, here, take this, here's the research, use what you will, and see if it will help you put together some things that that other communities are doing in support of all those different groups. So I see this, as it's come forward, as a way of not just sort of jumping on it right now. I do agree with the mayor that it needs to be tweaked, but I think it's an excellent direction to continue to have community involvement and buy-in into making that building's use successful. We want groups, we want organizations, we want people, and they need to be working together. It shouldn't just turn into, a facility that's used only by one strand. It needs to continue to be a multi-community thing. And I think that a committee is a great way to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any other comments? Sure. Oh, Madam CEO, you got something? Absolutely.
I do have some comments. Thank you very much. So thank you for bringing this idea forward. Councillor and I did have some discussion about it as he was putting it on the agenda, and my initial reaction was, we are in the midst of doing a strategic plan, and maybe this would be something that we would await for the community to identify. And I think we might get, and I've sort of seen some of the tweets and comments, so we might get some information on that, but there might be other places for that. And what really struck me was the fact that maybe we haven't been doing our best at telling you all the good things that we've been doing at the community center with our current staffing level, which is pretty good. And I think that our director will be able to comment on that in a few seconds. Again, these ideas, like having a committee is a great thing, but it does require staff resources. So I want council to go in knowing that we need either, I know you're suggesting that there be a clerk, a volunteer clerk. I can't really have a volunteer clerk because it's an official record that we'd have to deal with. And then managing the expectations of a committee I know that they would be very, very enthusiastic, and I wouldn't want to be potentially letting them down. So I do have some concerns, but happy to talk about it. But particularly what struck me was, what is the gap and what are we not telling you? So maybe if the chair's okay, we could let the director just talk about some of those initiatives.
Mr. Director.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, I jotted a few points down, and I think your motion kind of, I understand the intent of it, and I think you beat me to the punch because I was talking with rec staff trying to pass on some good news to this committee. And our intention was to write a staff report back in October, but staff got busy back in September. Here we are in October, and time's flying. But I would say stay tuned because we plan on writing a report to talk about our successes at the community center. And if I could take this time, that report will probably highlight some events that staff have put on that I'm sure everybody's aware of, like Family Day, the Easter egg hunt. We do music in the park and movie in the park. We put on the Public Works Emergency Services open house. We put on the Canada Day event and the Harvest Roots. There's also a number of community group events that staff provide a lot of assistance with, like the Terry Fox Run, Age Friendly open house, Chamber of Commerce community barbecue, Chamber of Commerce home show, which is going to take place this November, taking on initiatives like the Christmas tree lighting event, and we help with the Santa Claus parade. And as far as revenue goes, and that's kind of one of the main points in your in your motion that one of the objectives of the steering committee or advisory committee. You know, the way staff looked at revenue initiatives is there's basically 4 ways to generate revenues, right? User fees, rental fees, and this council passed a bylaw with our recreation rates and fees. So we have a number of fitness programs, at least 3 times a year. We put out a flyer with at least 20 different types of rec programs, and staff is administering that basically Monday to Saturday. We kind of leave Thursday open to save some room for some rentals, for rental space in the building. We also have a number of drop-in programs that I'm sure you've seen the schedule. So there's at least 20 different drop-in programs. And we also hold March break and summer camp. We have approximately 30 to 40 kids, and this is all run by part-time staff. I talked about rental fees. Staff have developed partnerships with Niagara Public Health to offer programs like Triple P, which is a positive parenting program, and also the Healthy, Safe, and Strong program. We also have a number of private rentals, such as yoga classes, birthday parties, ice rentals, obviously. We're hosting 4 hockey tournaments this season. We just had a successful one this past weekend. And there's a lot of gym rentals. Associations like minor soccer and minor football are basically renting our gym facility for a number of weeks to hold some training events for their young athletes. So in summary, we have over like 30 rental permits that we have issued since March, over an 8-month period. So, it's a new building. We set the user rates, the user fees. We're pretty busy with rentals, so staff's doing a good job, and that was the purpose of that report, so stay tuned. We'll elaborate on that. And I'm sure if you visit the facility on Monday or Tuesday night, you'll see that, you'll agree that the facility is quite busy. Further to that, I'm not sure if council's aware, but we've started some advertising in the arena area with the rink boards. So we implemented as a pilot for 1 year, just see how we make out with advertisement, if there's an interest in it. And our goal over the next couple of years is to expand that advertising space, maybe throughout the entire building. And vending contracts is also another way of generating revenue. We do have some vending machines, mostly just snacks, but we'll look at different options. Perhaps it's something this advisory committee or steering committee would help us with. And also we're working with minor hockey to take over the concession stands. Like the township of Lincoln, town of Lincoln has had some struggles with their concession stand, and minor hockey is kind of taking over the concession stands at the Lincoln Arena as well as Grimsby, and we're kind of following suit with that. And I guess my final 2 points is, the building is new. Staff needs some time to refine some operational tasks. Like we had a meeting this morning just to talk about phone extensions, trying to get phone extensions, iron out who should call who, just operational issues that we're still trying to iron out. And as the CAO alluded to, compared to our neighboring municipalities, Grimsby, Lincoln, Pelham, they definitely have a lot more staff resources than we do to offer these services. So, our intent is to provide this report forward. My suggestion would be, it's a new building. Councillor Yonker kind of alluded to it. The mayor kind of alluded to it. Either include it in the strategic plan, or refer back to us. Let us think about what this committee terms of reference should be, and hopefully we could put together a good plan moving forward.
Thank you for that, Mr. Director. Councilor Riley, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to address a couple of things. So maybe it's just the way I obviously wrote it. In terms of the secretary, it was more somebody who could record the minutes, not so much a volunteer clerk. So maybe if that had to be removed, and maybe that could be the staff liaison. I just want to make sure I wasn't expecting someone from the township to go there unpaid by any means. I just thought that was a way of phrasing that they would have those minutes recorded and that would be shared with us in some capacity, however that needed to be. And like I said, I knew putting this together wasn't 100% to where I wanted it, but it was important to me to have this conversation beforehand. I did just want to make a note of a couple of things. As Director of Public Works had mentioned about, we don't have a lot of staff. So again, I think this is not so much a want as it kind of is for me at this moment, but much as a need, unless we're going to invest into a lot more staff over the next little while. I know I'm kind of the very proactive guy. I kind of don't wait for the ship to sink. I like to kind of vision what we can do ahead of time and get ahead of things. So I see this as obviously maybe some people look at it as maybe putting the cart before the horse, but for me, this is kind of setting precedence to have a strong, stable future for the West Lincoln Community Center. I think the other thing is, to me, it's important to have this established because as whatever the amalgamation fallout happens to be, if there's one, I guess, but if there is, making sure that we still have some kind of say in a whole as a community. We don't know what the DNA makings of the municipality will be. So having, again, it back to the residents and the people that can be a part of it, they're going to be instrumental in that. So not having anything, I think, that creates a vulnerability personally, but that's just my take on it. When the Director of Public Works mentioned about the ads, I have noticed them myself walking the track, and I think they're fantastic. But to my understanding, it's a lump sum payment, and there's a company that's out that actually is their responsibility to get the rest, which to me indicates a missed revenue opportunity, because I feel like if we had the system in place, and I realize we're early on, so don't get me, I'm not trying to be judgmental as much as I'm just seeing a missed opportunity for us to generate possibly more advertising space, considering if I was informed correctly, we're probably taking a tenth of what the value of it's worth, and that's just a guess. There's no fact behind that. Maybe we're getting a lot more. So I would love to chat with you at some point and maybe get a better understanding. But again, by involving the community, we involve other partners. This is just, I don't imagine Joe Blow off the street coming to be there. We get people who are invested in the community in some capacity. We get a variety of different people. Maybe Joe Blow being part of it, but at the same time, we get people, I know Stan Packs are already well within the center there. Chilstra, who's very involved with our community as well. And we get these other people who maybe want to find a way to be more involved because we have this action group. So again, I don't want to lose the momentum that this could create. I agree with the mayor. It definitely needs some tweaking. So I would be open to sending it back to staff. I'm not 100% on board with just putting it in the strat plan, because I don't see where the achievable levels can be. I feel like if we put it back to staff and I don't hear from anything in a few months, I'm going to be pressuring you guys again. Or if it's in the strat plan, I think we're at the mercy of however that comes out, and none of us really know what that process is. We're learning it right now. So I would be opposed to strat plan option. I would be open to the idea of sending it back to staff, or sending it to staff, I guess, and see what they would like to bring back to us at a later date. But at the same time, I don't really want to sit on the sidelines on this in a matter of speaking. I think we need to, implement something sooner than later.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Yeah, I kind of agree more or less with bringing it back to staff. Usually, us as councillors, we put something on an agenda. In the past, it was brought forward to usually the chair, but things are going on the agenda recommended by councillors are getting put out there, which I don't know. It's a little different process that I'm used to, let's just say. Not that you've done it. The other members of this committee have done that as well. We bring recommendations forward. But usually recommendations do come from staff, and then we vote on them. But initiating I guess the flame is a good idea. I'm not opposed to always promoting more, because that's the key, what we're here to do, right? To promote our town and getting things in. But, hopefully staff can look at this and come up with something, to tie up staff members. We did have a working committee before. Myself sat on it, Councilor Ganan. A lot of controversy was raised over it, but we did have it, and I thought we did some good things with it. Not everybody saw it that way, but I thought we did some good things with it, and things came out of it. So I think these are really good, especially getting community involvement is always good. Ideas coming forward, and volunteers is always good when people want to be a part of the community, right? So hopefully this goes back to staff, but like I said, it should be cleaned up a bit, but I'm glad you started the fire, put it out there, but staff needs to, and then we can all vote on it as a committee if it meets the needs or it doesn't. So, Mr. Mayor?
I'd like to propose that referral at this time.
refer it back to
Yeah,
staff
Refer it to staff
at a later date?
to come back to the council, yes, sure. And, I don't even think, it needs to happen inside of 2019, early in 2020, maybe in February of 2020.
At the Public Works, would you,
Yeah, same.
is that
same
enough
committee.
time for you guys, or?
Well, even through budget.
Sure.
Yep, okay.
Sure. Okay, do you have that? See if you can read that,
So the recommendation I have is that the establishment of an advisory committee for the West Lincoln Community Center be referred to staff for further investigation, and a report and recommendation be presented at a future Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting in early 2020.
That's great. So I've seen that recommendation by the mayor. It's moved by the mayor. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Yonker, all those in favor? And that's carried. I didn't need to ask comments or questions on that, so sorry, I jumped that. Moving on. I don't have to vote, no, on the original motion, no? No, okay. Sorry, yeah, okay, it's referred, sorry, yeah, my mistake, yeah. Item PW 43-19, Director of Public Works, Mr. Director Paula, investing in Canada's infrastructure program, community, culture, recreation, stream funding. Got the floor, Mr. Director.
Okay, thank you, Chair. There's currently a funding stream out there under Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. It's known as the Community, Culture, and Recreation Funding Stream. So I just wanted to provide a verbal update of this funding stream opportunity. So there's two types of eligible projects. There's a multi-purpose category, which focuses on integrated service delivery to address identified service gaps. The project cap for that project is generally $50 million in total cost, and some examples of eligible projects would consist of a new build or a construction project related to community centers or culture or recreation, or an expansion of existing facility. The second type of project would be a rehabilitation and renovation category. This project category focuses on maximizing the funding impact of small-scale projects that would improve the condition of existing facilities. And that project cap is around $5 million, and eligible projects would consist of either a renovation or a rehab to address functionality at an existing facility, kind of a small-scale improvement to address accessibility, such as different types of building improvements. And it could also involve a small new build to a cultural or community center infrastructure. So the deadline for that application is November 12th of 2019, and eligible projects must be substantially complete by March 31st of 2027. And the way the funding mechanism works is the federal share would cover 40% of eligible costs. Provincial share would be around 33%. And the local municipality share would just be over 26%. So based on that, staff intends to submit an application for some improvements at the Keister Center property in Abingdon, which would include demolition of the existing community hall, Abingdon Hall, and constructing a new building in place of that, probably the same size footprint. And all associated site works, which would include a new cistern, septic bed, some fencing around the property, and a parking lot. The improvements, we could also include improvements to the two existing baseball diamonds, maybe redoing the snack bar building that is currently on the property at the one baseball diamond. Improvements to the existing soccer field, perhaps, new tennis court, new basketball court, perhaps, and maybe some playground improvements. So that's staff's intention, to apply for that project and see where the chips fall.
Councilor Rayner? Your mic, Councilor. Your microphone. Thank you.
That sounds better.
You got the floor,
Are
Counselor.
you in yet? Have you checked the belt? Anyways,
Focus, Counselor.
through to the Director of Public Works, did you say there was 15 million available?
50 million was in the first category, which was for like new community centers.
So if we built the
Well,
community
hang
center a
on.
year later, we would have got in on this 15 million that we just lost? Is this all about timing here?
I think it just came out recently, so we couldn't.
No, but had we not have built last year by some, we could have been eligible for like up to 15 million on this MERS? Are you serious?
If only you can see the future, right? Yeah. It would be fantastic.
Oh, my goodness. All right, that raises the next question. I appreciate the Director of Public Works with regards to the community center at Caister. What about the fire hall at Caister? Is that another one that could be added to it?
Through the chair, fire halls are not an
Not
eligible
eligible?
project, no.
No. All right.
All right, guys. We apply for these grants per se, right? And how long does it take, when do you start applying for all these grants? Like within, as soon as you can, and how does it work?
I can't remember when the announcement was made, but it wasn't too long ago, probably a month or so
It was,
ago.
I think it was announced in August, and the details came out in September, and
Correct.
the due date is November 12th.
Yeah. So that's the way these funding programs
November
work,
12th is the
right?
due date, right? So you have to, get
Yep.
it in. So how does it work if, they're talking about amalgamation, they're talking like, why would Abingdon, which I'm happy to hear that, because that, I just went in there to vote on Thanksgiving weekend, and I was walking in there thinking, well, we really need to do some work here. What do we do? Like if well, let's say we're choosing Abingdon, but why, which I'd like to see, but how do we kind of, Mr. Director, how do we know that's for the whole picture, is what I'm trying to ask. Madam CAO?
I'm going to assist here. So it's due on November 12th.
So let's hope we get it, yes. I'm never saying
And-
don't apply, that's not my intentions here,
But
apply.
I think what you do if we have no clue of what we're going to be dealing with in terms of the regional review, whereas it's, I think you have to be doing what is right for the community right
Continue
now.
doing that.
And then it gets papered. It gets papered in if there were an amalgamation, it gets put into a contractual arrangement.
And it can go forward as well?
Yeah, so it's, that would be certainly, it's an asset. It's an asset that we would be bringing to any arrangement. And it would be an asset that would have to be addressed by the new entity, if that's the way it's going to go. But I would not recommend that you hold off, but you carry on.
Yeah.
And I think that the funding, this one they want to announce. Like they're these tranches, they say they're announcing them quickly, and maybe that will be what will happen.
Thank you, Madam CEO. I got Councilor Riley first and then the mayor.
Thank you. I agree with Madam CEO. I think the other thing we got to look at is, regardless on the amalgamation, I guess to what capacity that looks like, we're still going to have some kind of representation, and that person's going to be able, or two individual, I don't know how many individuals it'll be, if it's more than one or two. They'll be speaking on behalf of that when that comes to, whenever it happens. So if we're able to get the build done before we get the grant and all that happens before the end of our term, great. If it doesn't, then we will have that information. I'm assuming some kind of thing in process. We find out we're amalgamating, we're all done end of November, then again, it kind of is what it is. I don't think there's too much. But I think the announcement was made at, was it AMO? I think when we first heard about that. So I know that was a question actually the mayor and I had chatted about, wondering with the West Lincoln Community Center if that could be retrofitted or not, and retroactive, sorry. And so, we're definitely keeping the center on our mind, especially if there's an opportunity for free revenue. But again, I think Abington would be a good investment to make, especially as the community grows. So I don't have any problems. I just wanted to make light of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to highlight, and the CAO alluded to it, how important it is, regardless of if we don't amalgamate, and it's a status quo with tweaks, which is what the CAOs have been working on all the time, that we have the plan. We're not going to sit on our hands. And if we do amalgamate, to have these things in paper, our strat plan, some of these things, that's important too, because it shows that we had a plan for our community. It's easier to adopt than to say, oh, well, we've amalgamated. Now this is our wish list because we get to pull in a big pot called St. Catharines and stuff, and we're gonna, so that's why it's very, very important, you know, and we don't know, at this point. I still have no clue. I haven't heard, no birds have whispered in my ears. But to have a plan and to make applications of these things and if secure them is far better position, even if the worst case scenario is that we, amalgamate and we quote unquote lose West Lincoln identity. We will not lose West Lincoln identity, and the proof of that is that Caister residents of this community after 50 years still refer to themselves as living in Caister and not West Lincoln. So just, Gainsborough people do the same.
Perfect. Councillor Yonker?
Yeah, I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the Director of Public Works, would we be able to still add anything on the Wellandport place there? I know when we walked through there, first of all, I didn't realize what was all in behind there, but there's the driveway, and then there's actually a boat ramp, but there's some issues with, the driveway, how people can back in, they're going on the lawn to back their boats in. Is that something we can add on to this grant, or is that too late, too much?
Through the chair, we talked about that at our senior management meeting. You could only really apply for one project. So we, the tough decision is, do we do Wellandport or Abingdon? So you can't do improvements at multiple sites. So that's why we're thinking of proceeding with the Abingdon property.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's where we need to spend the most money, right? I think we do need to look at Wellandport, improve it some, but the bigger project's there, so why wouldn't we get the grant for the bigger project? That makes sense to me. So I agree. Good.
Okay. Any further questions? I don't see anything. I'll move on to members of council. Any other business of an informative nature? I will start to my right. Councillor Cody, Councillor Yonker, Councillor Ganan, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Rayner. Oh, yep.
I have one. It is official now, the North Chippewa Bridge is finished, it's opened. And Councillor Cody, you mentioned a little while ago about the bridge on 69, that it's nicely paved, and it would be really nice if the road on either side of that was also made the same as the bridge. Did you not?
And that certainly wasn't me. That was me.
Was that you? Well, thank you. That's a good suggestion. Now that we've got this brand-new bridge that's paved, boy, wouldn't it be nice if it was the same on both sides? But that's, down the road. But anyways, the bridge is there. It looks nice. And thank everybody for getting it done. I'm sure the residents there appreciate it. We didn't have a ribbon cutting, though, did we?
No.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
I don't know if we need ribbon cuttings for every structure that we build in this community. That was the
Well,
previous.
they had the one on
That-
for the Legionplatz.
That was the previous council and mayor. I don't know.
And
if
CAO.
we might be going in a different direction. Councillor Riley?
I got nothing.
Madam CAO.
Thank you. So this is really quick, I promise. So just like, we're heading up to November 1st, which is the date when we start to do the enforcement of no cars on street, so that if we have to do winter maintenance, we can start to do that. So just letting you know that we're going to be starting to talk about that. But then moving into that period of time, we're going to start to do some enforcement on removal of RVs that are in driveways that are preventing cars from getting into driveways. So I just get forewarning you in case you get calls or questions from your constituents that are wondering about what's happening, and that's precisely the reason why we're just trying to get cars off the street.
Thank you. Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. Is there going to be, I don't know if I missed this, is there going to be like a media release that will be out that people will be aware, or are the people just going to be ticketed? Like, I'm just trying to understand how that, like, how we can educate people so that they're like, oh, they can't just say they didn't know.
We will do some material to get that message out.
Thank you. Councillor Rayner, you had something else for the second time. Please be brief. Because I'm going back. Usually at this segment, we don't go back, so that's where I'm trying to, but yeah, I'm allowing you to go back.
Well, thank you, Councillor Trombetta. I'd like to ask a question of the Director of Public Works, if I may.
Sure.
a week or two ago, concession 3, they put the paint on the road they marked the road in yellow, but I've never seen a tar and chip road that was marked, painted down the middle of it. Like, was there a reason why they did concession 3?
Mr. Mayor, let me answer. The director can answer this question. We don't need you, Mr. Mayor. We get the director. We have a director, we have staff. Go ahead, Mr. Director.
Through the chair to Councilor Rayner. No, it's not unusual to line paint tar and chip roads. And I'm not sure about the details of that. I'm just assuming that our line painting, we have a line painting program where we just repaint some of the lines that have worn away over time. But I could look, do you know what section of
Yeah.
concession 3 we're talking about? I could look into
Right,
it
we're
further.
talking between 14 and Caser Center Road, but we have a lot of tar and chip roads out in Ward 1, but they're not marked. And all of a sudden, this one is marked, and it seems so strange to see it on a tar and chip road. It's not even in white, it's in yellow. I don't know, but it just seems like a waste of money that we could be doing something else with it, because we've never done that. And if they are gonna do it, they got a lot more to expend, and is that in the budget?
Mr. Director, you still have the floor.
Through the chair, I'm assuming it's in our operational budget or annual operational budget, but I don't know the details. Let me look into it, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
respond to you directly.
Yeah, that'd be
Or to all of
Maybe we
council.
can report back at a future Public Works meeting on that.
Regarding
That
line
would- that would be
painting,
good,
sure.
If you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor? We can report back in a future Public Works?
Yeah, it's fine, it's just so unusual, that's why I thought I'd bring it
Maybe
up.
we'll
Thank
get
you.
some answers and we'll come back to you at a future Public Works meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I guess that's all we have this evening. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Director, Ms. Vanessa, thank you for coming out as well. That's it. I adjourn this meeting at 8:35. Thank you. Good night.